we're looking at what's the difference between healing a family dynamic currently or going back to the root, going back generations and going back to that root cause and then moving forward. Um, I think you can look at it in terms of how many roads to Rome are there? And so it's about looking at what's the best road to take. Um, in answering that whole question, I think an important thing to take a look at is the word healing. Because remember, divine light, one of the principles of divine light is it only thinks in the positive. And so when you think in terms of healing, you have to think in terms of broken before you can fix. And so you're better off when you're taking a look at something like that, especially when it comes to relationships in the emotional world. Don't look at healing, but think more about evolution. And I love that example of when I was diving down in the Maldives and I didn't want to hit the coral reef and there was the current and I was so busy swimming away from what I didn't want to hit. My tank banged in another part of coral reef and I did more damage. And my diving instructor went like this. And later she said, you always have to look at where you're swimming.
Mhm.
Don't look at what you want to get away from. Look at where you want to go. When you're looking at the family dynamic, for example, you take a look at what do I want? Where do I want this to go? And what we're talking about here is also true for really the culture at large and the world at large, because we're in such a chaotic state right now, because everything is so being pulled apart and everything is conspiring to conquer and divide, conquer and divide, conquer and divide, divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. And especially when you have multi-generational with so many differing points of view, that it's easy to be pulling at each other instead of all swimming in the same direction. And so the old module of healing is really to kind of go for the appearance of a good relationship. You still got that stuff broiling under the surface. So if the group can take a look at where they want to swim, what are their values? And if they can find a common core value, then they can all start swimming in that same direction and evolve. And it's all about evolution. We say ascension, which is really moving into higher planes of unconditional love. And evolving a relationship is really about, moving into deeper planes of intimacy and love. So that in and of itself is an ascension. So once you know what your core values are, then you can start working together to go in that direction and healing occurs or the evolution occurs. When you do this in the present, then it is about the mind makes shift and the heart receives it. And divine light manifests through your thoughts, and then the emotions connected to that thought are what give you the full fuel for action and change behavior. And then just the way our biology is set up, it takes repetition to retrain those brain synapses and the circuitry of how it processes information. It takes repetition for that. And it takes repetition also for that sense memory recall within the biology of your body. And so much of how we have been conditioned to do is to respond to the biology of our body. So, we have one narrative coming at us, coming at us, coming at us, coming at us. We drink out of that. We drink the we drink the Valena, we drink the poison, we drink the poison, we drink the poison, we emotionally buy in, we emotionally buy in. Bob's your uncle, we've got your behavior. And so when you think about the evolution of what that family dynamic is and your core values, the minute you agree on the core values, you're already deeper in your heart. And that's really where you want the behavior change, because if your heart says one thing, then your thoughts will fall in line. So rather than follow that module of you change your thought and hope that the heart follows, you're already deeper in your heart. if you compare that to what if you're doing light where you're sending it back to the core, and that's really powerful work, and you can send it back generations. What that does primarily is it is a transformational thing for the one who's doing the light work. The beauty about the human experience is that you cannot do light work for someone else. You can hold the space, you can send them light, but it is their free will to receive it. It is their free will to change. It is their free will to make the choices for their experiences. And each of us have a divine soul purpose or divine soul contract that we made with ourselves from an experiential point of view. And we might be serving our divine soul family group, or we might come in to have the experience. We might have come in to, assist to uplift humankind. But each of us have our own divine soul purpose within that family group. Okay, so when you send it back to within the family for the family dynamic, the person that it affects the most is the one who's doing the light work, but that directly affects the vibration and the consciousness that you expand within the family dynamic. On a social level, the family dynamic is entangled anyway, from a conditioned, a psychological, and a sociological point of view. But it's also entangled in the quantum field between you. And so changing that quantum essence of you and the emotional essence and the actual DNA, or how the vibrations of infinite unconditional love moves through your DNA, you're going to emanate something different altogether. And it'll be in a deeper level of love, and people will respond to that. And also in response to that, and this is working with anybody, this is where the divine in me sees and greets the divine in you, the divine in you sees and greets the divine in me mental mantra that I share with people who are just starting, if they want to really understand that what their thoughts do manifest in a very real and concrete way. That's what namaste is. That's what aloha is. That's what a lot of these terminologies are. And what that is doing is it's taking your human ego intellect and it's dropping it into your body. And where the deeper you go in the body, you're emanating divine love center to circumference as it's moving through all your bodies. And that's what the basic activation of divine light vibrations is also about, is training the human mind to understand the different flows of the sacred geometry of you. And so the deeper you are in your heart, the purer the emanations of infinite unconditional love are that you send out. And they're reality, naturally, human perceptions, because you're human form. But that's the core value about sending it back, because it's a deeper transformation in that one individual person. When two people within the group, or you share that experience, or two or three people within the group together go back, or either two or more are gathered, you've got the resonance. Two notes make a chord, and that chord will resonate deeper. Three notes together, that will resonate even more in that chord note. So when you have a couple people within the family that send it back in time to go back to that core, as far back as you can recall, then the ego intellect is still involved and actively engaged with change. So one of the other things that we've talked about in other conversations is that when you make a choice or you make a decision, you haven't made a decision until you've made peace with that decision. And so the nice thing about a few people doing that historical work and sending it back to time is that you are three coming together and making a very conscious choice to no longer participate in that family paradigm or that family dynamic, and to swim in new directions.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being interested in learning on how to live your light more fully and freely with emotional freedoms that you haven't even yet begun to dream of. And that gives you the courage and clarity to live your divine soul purpose. Now, just so that I play well with the algorithms here on YouTube, be sure to like the video. please leave me a comment because I do love more two-way conversations. And subscribe if you want to stay in touch with any of the new material that I'm putting out there.